We welcome you to worship today, and as we do so, we acknowledge that Calvary United Church stands on Treaty 6 territory. We pay our respects to our elders, both past and present, wherever we find ourselves this morning. We recommit to our status as an affirming ministry within the United Church of Canada and strive to be an open-minded, inclusive, and welcoming place of worship. It is our deepest hope that all people might feel at home in this space, and we give thanks to God for this Sabbath day, where we join our hearts and minds in prayer. Good morning, and welcome to Calvary United Church. We invite you to come into this moment, to slow down, to breathe into this space, that we might worship together God who created the heavens and the earth, Jesus Christ, the light of the world, and the Holy Spirit who guides our steps forward. One mode of poetry in the Psalms is all-out praise and thanksgiving, such as the one for today. We also find praise even in Psalms of lament and complaint, because God is good all the time, and all the time, God is good. Life is not always good. But when we engage in gratitude, we remember the evidence of God at work in our lives. And we remember that indeed, God is holding our lives.
Venturing out or coming home, 'neath heat of day or cool of night, we call on one who hears your voice and comes to heal and keep your life. Oh, God is holding your life. God is holding your life. God is holding your life. We believe God is holding your life. Yes, God is holding your life. Oh, God is holding your life. We believe.
Good morning and welcome to Children's Time. You'll see that I'm back here on my yoga mat today. I'm in my exercise clothes, which means that we're going to do a little more movement today. The last 2 weeks, we haven't even got up and moved around. We have been sitting to do our exercises. So today we're going to change that. We're going to start sitting here on the floor or in your chair, wherever you would like to, but then we're going to get up and we're going to do a little more of movement, okay? So I've prepared a couple exercises that'll get us warm and get us moving. That'll be just gentle exercises so that we're not doing anything too crazy, but will get us moving this winter season that we need to move through. What I want you to try and concentrate on today is feeling God through every one of your movements. I said this last week and the week before. The whole point of this is to try and bring God into our movements. This is children's time at church after all. So as you're breathing, you're concentrating on your breathing, remember to try and breathe in the Spirit, exhale any negative thoughts that you're having, and just feel God with you. God is with us in everything that we do. God is surrounding us and inside us, no matter what we're doing, exercising or working or anything. So let's start. We're going to get into a nice comfy position. Like I said, you can be seated on the floor like me. I have my yoga mat. If you want to do this in your chair, you're more than welcome to. What we're going to do is we're just going to start by pulling in our stomach. So not sucking in really hard so we can't breathe. What I want you to do is just tighten your abdominal muscles. You have little muscles behind your spine that you're going to try and pull into. Just picture everything tightening so that your spine is held really, really safe. This will help anybody if they have low back problems. It'll keep your spine nice and safe, okay? So we're going to draw in, breathe. Remember to breathe with everything that we do, okay? And we're just going to tilt over, okay? And we're going to go slow at first and to the other side. And we're going to do some little crunches like this. If this is hard on your lower back, please feel free to sit out this one. And we're just going to do a couple more crunches to each side. I'd like to do about 10 to each side. And if you want to do them over, you can start over with the next set. And we have the last one to this side. All right, let's move on to the next exercise. Okay, so for this exercise, what we're going to do is we're going to work on our balance. So what we're going to try and do is we're going to pull in our core. We're going to picture all these little muscles at our backs and pull them all in. You don't have to be like sucking in your stomach really hard, but just try and keep them really hard. And then what I want you to do is, if you can, stretch your arms here or all the way above your head, and you're just going to shift your weight onto your left leg and lift up your right leg. It's not as easy as it seems with your hands above your head to hold your balance. Don't forget to hold in your core and to breathe. And hold for just a few seconds. Challenge yourself. When your leg starts to feel a little shaky, hold it for a couple more seconds. If you are finding your hands above your head a little too challenging, you can always put your arms out to the side. All right, and back. And then we're going to do the same thing on the other side. Shift your weight to your right leg and balance here. This really works on your glutes and your abs and all your core muscles. Remember to breathe here. Oh, and if you have to touch down for a second like I just did, that's okay too. You might also find that you have one side that's easier than the other. All right. Okay, now we're going to do some squats. So for squats, you want to make sure your feet are shoulder length apart, that your feet are right underneath your shoulders, your back is pulled up straight. All right, and then we're going to pull in our stomach again, just like the other exercises. We're going to push back and sit down like we're sitting in a Choo chair. You don't want your knees all pushed out over top. You just want to be nice and back. All right, and then we're going to do that a few times. Squats gets your body really warm and really works your whole legs and your back and gets you really warm and moving, all that blood flowing everywhere. It's such a great exercise. And remember to breathe when you're doing this. Always, always breathing. And so that's a set of 10. We'll just do 10 for now. If you'd like to go back and repeat this, it's always great to do a couple sets of all the exercises that we're doing. That way you get a really complete workout. All right, we've changed angles a little bit. Now we're going to try and focus on our hips, our lower half. So what we're going to need is something to balance on. So you could probably use the back of a chair. I'm going to use the table here. Anything that you can just support yourself with, okay? So we're going to support ourselves. We get our hands and our feet ready to go. And then we're going to shift our weight onto our right side of our body. And you're just going to lift your left leg. Make sure that your toes are nice and flexed so that they're engaged, and then just push back a little bit. And then we'll do that a couple times. All of the exercises that we're doing today are going to help us focus on balance, and all of us at any age should be able to do them. If there's anybody who is feeling like these are exercises they can't do and they would like to participate, you can always message me and ask me for some different variations. All right, and one last one. And then we'll just do the same thing on the other side. So we'll reset and then shift our weight onto our left side. And then up and back. Remember to breathe and really concentrate on squeezing in your hip muscles here and in your leg and in your lower back. And that's 10 of each of those. So for this exercise, what we're going to do is we're going to do a wall press or a wall push-up. There's a few different types of ways to do this. You can put your hands different places, you can put your feet different places, and it'll give you a little bit different results. If you put your hands really close together, you'll be working out a different muscle. If you put your hands really wide, you'll be working out a different part of your back, okay? I'm just gonna kind of go in the middle and show you a general push-up. And the same thing, you'll make it easier on yourself if you're standing closer to the wall. So the further away you stand, the harder it'll be. And you just want your hands kind of shoulder height. And then you're just going to push into the wall and push yourself back. You're going to squeeze your shoulder blades together. Make all of your movements very intentional. That way you'll get the best workout. And remember to breathe as you're doing all your exercises. And there's our wall press up. Well, thank you all for joining me in those couple exercises. I know my muscles are all warm and feeling really good. Like I said a couple times before, if you want to go back through this video and redo the exercises a few times, that should give you a nice, well-rounded workout for your whole body. Did you remember to invite God in as you were exercising? I know I did. I felt God's presence all around me as I was working out. It's something that we can really intentionally work on, is inviting God in through our movements and every aspect of our lives. Thank you for joining me. I'll see you next week where we're going to do something a little bit different. Have a great week. Bye-bye.
Today we are reading from Psalm 111. Alleluia! I will thank you, Adonai, with all my heart, in the meeting of the just and their assembly. Great are your works to be pondered by all who love them. Majestic and glorious are your works, and your justice stands firm forever. You make us remember your wonders. You are compassion and love. You give food to those who revere you, keeping your covenant ever in mind. You reveal to your people the power of your actions by giving them the lands of the nations as their inheritance. The works of your hands are truth and justice, and all your precepts are sure, standing firm forever and ever, and carried out uprightly and faithfully. You have sent deliverance to your people and established your covenant forever. Your name is holy and awe-inspiring. Reverence for Adonai is the beginning of wisdom. Those who have it prove themselves wise. Your praise will last forever.
is strong in our history. Mercy is with us. Justice is with us. This is a whole heart hallelujah. Our cup is running over, running over. So this is our whole heart hallelujah. A never-ending waterfall of love. The covenant of love, is ancient to our people. It will last forever. God is with us. This is a whole heart hallelujah. Our cup is running over, running over. So this is our whole heart hallelujah. A never-ending waterfall, whole heart hallelujah. Our cup is running over, running over. So this is our whole heart hallelujah. A never-ending waterfall of love.
When I was a kid, one of our favorite movies to watch was Back to the Future. We absolutely loved the series, and they are still family favorites. Although I have to admit, the last time I watched them, I did find that I had a few questions. Comedian John Mulaney made a good point when he said he found it a bit confusing that the main character, a teenager, is mysteriously best friends with a disgraced nuclear physicist. Anyway, we loved Michael J. Fox, and it feels weird to call him by anything other than his full name, and went on to enjoy many of his other movies and his TV series Spin City. Like many of his fans, our family was devastated to hear that he had been diagnosed with Parkinson's disease at a very young age. It's weird how we get to know celebrities by their characters and their public persona, and if we connect to them in some way or find them likable, we are drawn in and find ourselves actually caring about their personal lives and challenges. Michael J. Fox always seemed like such a great guy. Funny, energetic, cheery, and optimistic, but also self-deprecating and genuine. So that when he went public with his diagnosis, there were a lot of people that felt empathy for him. His career changed significantly. No longer was he able to portray the carefree, boyish characters that jumped over desks and rode skateboards behind moving vehicles that he had always been known for. As he learned to live with the effects of his disease, he took on smaller roles and dedicated a lot of his time to starting the Michael J. Fox Foundation for Parkinson's Research, which has raised hundreds of millions of dollars since it was formed 20 years ago. Last week I heard him on the radio talking about a new book that he wrote, and the title really jumped out at me. No Time Like the Future, An Optimist Considers Mortality. You see, I'm always drawn to people who have a positive outlook on life, particularly if they have faced many challenges. We talked about this in our Advent study group a few weeks ago. There are some people we know who just have that gift of looking at things on the bright side, even when things are grim. I've encountered a few of them on the phone while making calls to check in with church members during this pandemic. Folks who continue to live in hope and who are able to keep their spirits up when the rest of the world is stuck in a cycle of scrolling through the news, staring at the wall, and binge-watching television. Michael J. Fox has always identified himself as an optimist. And when I picked up a copy of his new book, I read that even the worsening symptoms of Parkinson's disease over the last 30 years haven't changed that. He shared bits and pieces of his story, and it really shone with positivity, even when he was describing incredibly difficult circumstances. Until in 2018, he ran into some new health challenges and found himself in a situation where he just wasn't able to make the best of things. He started experiencing physical symptoms that seemed unusual for Parkinson's, and his doctors discovered that he had a large tumor squeezing his spine. The top surgeons in the world were consulted, and many felt that a surgery was too risky, but one of them agreed to remove the tumor, and it ended up going very well. The surgery was a success, and although Michael faced a long road of physiotherapy ahead, he felt good about how it had gone and turned his attention to achieving his goals of being able to walk again. All was going well for several months, and he was making good progress with his very vigorous physio routine. It was hard work, both physically and mentally, but things were starting to feel a bit more normal, and he was ready to try another small acting job. The morning of the shoot, he got up to get ready, took a wrong turn in the kitchen, and fell, completely shattering one of his arms in the process. All of the progress he had made on his physio was suddenly gone, and as he lay on the floor in pain, waiting for help, he couldn't stop berating himself for having been so careless as to let this happen. He was furious at himself for throwing away the work he had done, but more significantly, he felt the loss of all the time, effort, and worry that his friends, family, and health team had put into his recovery. It was after this fall that Michael J. Fox said he lost his trademark optimism, and rather than take lemons and make lemonade, he was ready to get out of the lemonade business altogether. While he recognized that he has a lot of privilege in the world and has access to a very high level of care, he did find himself in a depression and didn't like it at all. He writes, "I am unprepared for the fallout. My mood darkens. Even with all my health issues, I didn't believe I've ever fully grasped the very real depression and marginalization experienced by many who are ill and suffering. Measured on the misery index, the sum total of my afflictions barely nudges the needle on the lower end of the scale when compared to the pain and hardship of so many people in this world. Their burdens exist on levels I can't even imagine. The death of a child, the loss of liberty, the exile from home or country. There is no end to sadness. But we can only live our own lives, and in my life, in this moment, I am stretched by what I have to deal with." Throughout his book, Michael talks about what led him to his lowest point and how he was able to get through it and come out the other side with his optimism slightly battered but still intact. And that is through the practice of gratitude. And I could see throughout his stories that his life is absolutely steeped in gratitude. From the loving descriptions of his wife and children and friends, to the appreciation he has for the game of golf, even though he's terrible at it, his approach to life in general is one of thanksgiving for what is possible in that moment. Although it seems as though his family is out living their lives and having adventures that he can't be a part of, he finds himself grateful for the time they do have together when everyone returns home to see him. Being optimistic or living in hope doesn't mean denying the reality of the situation when things are bad. It's not that Pollyanna idea where we pretend that things are better than they are. It's having the mindset that even if things are going poorly, at some point it's going to get better. Michael J. Fox quotes his father-in-law, who always said to him, "With gratitude, optimism becomes sustainable." And I would argue that our ancestors in faith who composed and sang the Psalms knew that a few millennia before he did. Psalm 111 is a joyful psalm, full of praise and thanksgiving for God and for the wonder of God's love and God's beautiful creation. But it is not meant to just be sung during joyful, appreciative times. The gift of the Psalms is that they are to be sung and prayed at all times, and especially during difficult times. If we are slogging through challenging circumstances or depression or illness, it might be difficult to think of things that we are grateful for on our own. But if we receive these words that others have passed down to us, we can enter into the practice of gratitude with a little bit of assistance. Whether we are facing health challenges, emotional upheaval, or the many, many stressors and uncertainties of living in a global pandemic, a little bit of gratitude can take us a long way towards living in hope. And there is much to be thankful for right now. For the healthcare workers around the world who have been giving it their all for the last 11 months. For the vaccines that have already happened and are slowly being rolled out to those in the greatest need. For the technology that allows us to be in touch with loved ones even when we can't be physically together. For the sun on our faces, for the SAS Power employees that brought us out of the dark last week after the storm. For the people who grow and harvest and transport our food. For the warmth of this community, and for the knowledge that we are holding each other in prayer and in love, even when we can't hug each other or have a potluck together. For our God who loves us. Our ability to practice gratitude contributes to our resilience and our well-being, and we all need a bit of that at the moment, don't we? So let's take a moment to breathe deeply and offer some gratitude to the heavens for the God who has created us, who continues to create in this beautiful and broken world, and who is holding our lives. Amen.
As we've reflected on Nora's question, being supported by others and held by God, the first thing that came to mind was each other. It's been important that our relationship has been solid and that we've been part of each other's lives for so long that support has really meant a lot to our ability to make our way through this time. As we reflected further, it occurred to us that particularly early on in the pandemic, as the onset came, our government, and I don't mean that necessarily partisan particularly at all, but the fact that we have a government here that very much demonstrated the willingness to care, the willingness to respond, and the willingness to be personally involved in helping us begin, I guess, to get that feeling of being cared for. Now, obviously from that, it moves to all of those people who have been so supportive of our needs over the time, the healthcare workers. But I think, too, those folks that provided retail service, groceries, various services that were important to keeping us going through that time. Through the summer, it was people from the church, and the people from the church that came out in the summer and visited our garden, purchased some vegetables, which was great. But the opportunity again for that personal contact, and that was a huge support for us. Through the time as we approach through fall and into this winter season, the fact that folks check in and that we check in on people, phone calls, people have stopped by still asking about vegetables or that we sell honey. Again, the level of personal contact. Family, friends in this district, our family, the ability again to contact them and be part of it. And I think it's been significant that we've been able to stay connected to Calvary through the online, but also the Bible study. This has been important to us and something that's been significant as we move through this time. One of the things that was most significant in the fall is a new pup that came along in late November. Again, something that gave us focus, occupied our time, kept us busy, sometimes maybe too busy, but that was something that was important also. We're also blessed and supported by being in the country, by being able to get out of the house every day, have a place to move around, and be part of nature. Some beautiful scenes that sunset, sunrises, snow, the hoarfrost. Again, being held by God in that sense.
God is holding your life. God is holding your life. God is holding your life. We believe. God is holding your life. God is holding your life. God is holding your life. We believe. Creating God. Deep within is our thanksgiving. It is more than words, more than a thank you for what we have. Our thanksgiving is deeper than words. Rather, it is a way of being in the world, a sense of being loved, a recognition we are known by you, held by you, called by you, created by you. O love that shapes the universe and fills our breath with promise, hear our thanksgiving, our gratitude, our faith that we are yours, and yours are loved. And when we cannot say thanks, and when pain is too raw, and memory too fresh, and when we are not yet in the right place to appreciate the world as we once did, may we know your patience, shaped by a love that journeys with us, deeper down through the anxiety and pain and grief we know, to that richer place where we are loved through the pain, and in time, the right time, into that rich thanksgiving once more. Loving God, wherever we are and however we feel right now, may we know you are thankful for us, unconditionally and forever. And we know that you hear our prayers, both the ones that we hold silently in our hearts, the ones we speak aloud, the ones we pause now to write down and place in your hands. All this and so much more we lift to you and speak together the words that Jesus taught us. Our Mother and our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Praise to the Lord, all of you, God's servants. Blessed be the name of our God, now and ever. From the rising up of the sun, may the Lord be praised. Praise to the name of the Lord. There is none like our God in the heavens nor on earth, who lifts the poor from the dust, seating them with the mighty, who stoops to raise the weak and low. May the Lord be praised. Praise to the name of the Lord.
Go in peace, go in kindness, go in love, go in faith, this day, this night, and forever. Amen.
you.